Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be continuing the insulation and plasterboard job on the ceilings. So we've obviously installed 50mm insulation, and then since then I've plasterboarded over the top in the last video. So in this video I'm going to be taping and filling all the joints and basically getting everything ready for decoration. Okay, so now we're ready to tape and fill the joints. I'm using Easifill 20, which is a fast drying 20-minute of working time joint and compound. So I'm just going to mix up a small amount at once, and I'm doing it the lazy way with a drill attachment. Can pretty much guarantee whenever you mix this, you'll make it a little bit too dry, and then you put a tiny bit of water in and then it'll be too wet. Just going to add a little bit more water to this. Perfect. Just checking for any major lumps. No, that's fine. This coat isn't too vital for lumps. You can kind of get away with it a little bit more with this first coat. So what we're using is some paper tape. Now, I'm not an expert at this, so if you want to actually learn how to do this, go and watch someone else, but I've done it a few times before and it's always seemed fine. In fact, I taped and filled this whole room and I've had no cracks or anything. Just checking, it'd be awkward if there was. But no cracks or anything, so yeah, I'm just going to fill a small joint like in real time, and then I'll time lapse the rest because you don't really want to watch me doing every single joint. So with this first coat, you just want to get the filler into the gap that you've got left, and then what we'll do is run a thin bead all the way across, and that's to stick our tape onto, and then you just push it into place, and then get your knife and just press it down. And you're basically just gluing that onto the filler. The filler's basically gluing it to the plasterboard. So that's all we're doing on this first step. We'll leave this to dry, and then we'll put another coat over the top, and then probably one more coat after that. So yeah, I'm just going to crack on. I'll time lapse this, and then I'll talk you through doing the second coat, but that'll be tomorrow once this is dried. So this edge is just getting filled and taped, and then I'll run a bead of cork along the edge, because without it the filled part would just probably crack, because it's obviously against the tiles. We can't really do anything else. On the other side and on this end there's hardly any gap, so they'll just get corked and obviously then just painted. So that's all the boards taped and joined now. So they're all filled. So I'll leave that over the weekend to dry. It doesn't actually need that long to dry, but I'll leave it over the weekend and then I'll get to doing the second coat of filler on Monday. So I finished up on Friday by just giving this room a full clear out, because as you can see from the time lapse it was getting borderline ridiculous in here. I could barely move. So I cleared that out. I've just piled everything, like you can see, into the corners and now we're ready to get the second coat of filler on. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and with this filling knife just knock any high spots off just by dragging it across the ceiling and in that wall in the corner, because we've refilled that corner. So I'll knock the high spots off and then I'm going to get the second coat of filler on. This was an old bag of filler, so it's Easifill 20, which is supposedly gives you 20 minutes working time, but realistically it was giving me 5 max, so I was mixing up a new batch for every bit of tape. So I've got another bag and I've got Easifill 60, which gives you a little bit more working time. So I should be able just to mix up a big batch, use that, and then obviously have plenty of working time. So yeah, knock the high spots off and then I'll do a second coat. Hopefully we'll only need 2 coats of this because these ceilings are quite forgiving. Basically we've got flat lighting in here, so it's flat against the ceiling, so rather than spilling light out across the ceiling and showing up every imperfection, it makes the light go down, therefore the ceiling's in shadow. And because we're limited on natural light on this side of the house that actually directly hits, because we've got the beam that blocks the light, therefore in daylight without the lights on you also don't get much light going across, which obviously shows up all the imperfections. So I think I'll probably just do 2 coats of filler on here, give it a quick either sand down or wipe down with a wet sponge, and then we'll give it a coat of the white paint that we're using, and hopefully that'll be fine. And any little imperfections that need touching up, I'll just do one final coat with the Easifill, and then after that we can obviously do the final coat of paint. So when we moved into this house, there was only actually one light in the bathroom, and that was the light round the corner there where the shower is. There was a small window along that wall, which we've actually removed because it was literally like a little letterbox. Now we've put the skylight in. Originally we planned on putting 2 in, but we decided just to go with 1. So that lights up that end of the room. But as you can see, when I turn the light off, this end obviously is a bit dark. So we added this light, and like I said, this was plasterboarded and insulated. So this light is just one of the ones that pops in to the plasterboard, one of these. So it pops in and then it's held in by these clips. Now obviously the light that was here was replaced, and we wanted to match the light to the one over there rather than having a different one. Because that was lath and plaster, we obviously couldn't use one of these lights because they're designed to go in and hold onto the plasterboard. So what I did is make this ring just by making a little circle cutting jig on the router, and I routed that out, and then basically that swaps the need for a plasterboard, and that light just sat in there like that, and that whole thing was just screwed to the ceiling, and then obviously they were filled and it was all painted and stuff. Now we've got plasterboard there. I did think about putting this back because obviously to put this in we will have to cut the insulation back, but we've got 50mm of insulation in there, so we'd only have to cut maybe 10-15mm of it back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out of the ceiling there, and because I know this fits this light perfectly, I'm going to just use the inside of this, even though it's not perfectly round, to mark a circle on the ceiling, and then I'll use that circle to cut out, and then that'll fit in there perfectly, and we'll have 2 matching lights, and I won't have to install this again. Because to install this again, I'm going to have to clean it all up because it was stuck on, I think, with silicone. So the old plaster came off when it came down. It all needs a good sanding. I'd need to fill the holes and everything, so it's just a bit easier. And we're not going to lose much insulation. So I'll mark that hole out with this, get it cut out, and then we can get that light back in, because this end of the bathroom's been in darkness ever since we started this project. And now that we're at the point of pretty much being ready for a little rub down and a paint, it's about time that I got this light back installed. Like I said, I'm just going to hold this up and mark out where it needs cut. Then I'm going to go downstairs and turn the upstairs lighting off, just in case I accidentally touch one of these. We've all done it before, give ourselves a nice little electric shock. Do that, and then get that cut out and we can get that light back installed. Just using the buckley tool to cut this out. I'm just going to use a Stanley knife and cut a little box section out of this. There we go, that's that light back in. So now that everything's filled, it's time to sand it down ready for painting. So I've just got a filler knife, which I'm going to use just to knock any high spots off. So up here there's a couple of high spots, so you just scrape that over, it takes the high spots off. And then I've got a flat sanding block, it's one of these sort of foam ones, and that means I can get into the corner So I'm just going to give this all a light rub down. And then it's going to be ready for paint. I'm also going to try the wet sponge method. This corner, the filler's a little bit thicker, so this definitely does need sanding rather than just a wet sponge, but I think I might try the wet sponge on there because that's pretty much flat, to be honest. And there's a few other bits that I'll probably try a wet sponge on because stuff like that is pretty much good to go. So a quick wipe over with a wet sponge, you basically sort of re-wets the filler, and it's almost like sort of polishing the filler rather than sanding it off. And you can probably see when you sand how much dust's created, so it's not obviously too bad having all the dust in here, but in the landing and the bathroom, they're finished rooms, so I don't really want to be sending dust flying everywhere. So I've just got a wet sponge here, and I'm just going to wipe over these bits. You don't want it too wet, just slightly damp. It works pretty well. You don't want to rub too hard with this, you just want to sort of glide across the surface. Because if you rub too hard, you're going to dig into the bits you've filled. And obviously take those out, so you can see these are the bits we've filled. So we've taken off the bits either side and left the bits as being filled. So now that everything's been sanded down, it's time to paint. Because we are applying paint to either fresh filler, like this, or obviously in case of the ceilings, fresh plasterboard, we need to put a mist coat on. A mist coat is basically watered down emulsion paint. So I've got about a quarter of this tub filled with water, and then I'm going to pour in the emulsion paint that we're going to be using. And then I'm just going to use this drill attachment to mix this up. Just in time for my drill to die. But that's all mixed. I've also defluffed the roller, so what I do is I just pull some tape out and then rub that on the back of the tape. That gets rid of any fluff that's on there. And then I'm just going to pour this watered down paint into a roller tray. So we can apply this by brush or roller, so I'm obviously going to just brush in these corners. Just be careful because it's very wet. Because you've obviously watered your paint down, it is a lot wetter than it normally is. So just don't put as much paint on the roller or the brush as you normally would, or it will fly everywhere. You can see how wet it is dripping off. You can see paint flying everywhere, so you should listen to my own advice and not put too much on the brush. That smaller area would actually be fine, but whilst I'm right next to it, I may as well do it anyway. You'll not get proper coverage with this coat. It's not actually what you're trying to do. You're just trying to basically soak some of the water down paint into the fresh filler or into the fresh new plasterboard. So don't worry if it's very sort of patchy. And if you can obviously see either plasterboard through it or the wall colour in this case. So yeah, I'm just going to do that now for all 3 ceilings, and there's a little corner behind the camera that needs doing, so I'm just going to time lapse that. That's the mist coat done, so now we just need to leave that to dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll get the second coat on. That's the ceilings all painted, so that is this project finished. We've now got the 50mm insulation, plasterboard, filled and painted, so that is that one ticked off the list. We've already actually noticed how much of a difference it's made. It's quite a big area and we were losing a lot of heat from it. It's made a big difference in the bathroom. The humidity levels are lower because it's warmer in there, and we've got little thermometer things and it's noticeably warmer in there. And obviously when you feel the ceilings, they're now warm rather than cold. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing. Didn't cost too much. I'm not sure exactly how much all of the materials were, maybe a couple hundred, but it's definitely going to save us from heating bills, so definitely worth doing. Good to have this done now. The whole back of this part of the house is all insulated. Now that's all done, we can crack on with the nursery build, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos, As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.